Welcome to the How of Business with your host, Henry Lopez, the podcast that helps you start, run, and grow your small business. And now, here is your host.
This is Henry Lopez. Welcome to the How of Business podcast. My guest today is Dylan Jahraus. Dylan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Henry.
I'm looking forward to this. This is a topic about Etsy shops, Etsy businesses that we've not done before. So if you have an idea for a creative product, or maybe you already have an online e-commerce shop, then in this episode, it's going to be of interest to you. Dylan Jahraus, who is an expert on building multi-six-figure Etsy businesses, she's going to share some of the essentials of starting and growing a successful Etsy shop for creative products. To get more information about the How of Business, including the show notes page for this episode, and to learn more about my one-on-one and group coaching programs, just visit thehowofbusiness.com. I also encourage you to please subscribe wherever you might be listening so you don't miss any new episodes. Let me tell you a little bit more about Dylan. Dylan Jahraus is a seasoned e-commerce entrepreneur with 10 plus years of experience who has transitioned from corporate e-commerce into scaling e-commerce entrepreneurs. Her e-commerce acumen fueled an Etsy venture, propelled her shop to over $1 million in profit within 6.5 years. She has since expanded into Amazon and Shopify while developing her team in her business. In 2022, Dylan launched the multi-six-figure Etsy Blueprint. That program enrolled 1,400 plus students within a year. She's anchored in authentic e-commerce strategies, and this program delivers tangible results and organic traction driven by student achievements of $10 million plus in revenue. That fosters a vibrant community of 60,000 plus YouTube subscribers, and also her top Etsy podcast, Etsy Seller Success with Dylan Jahraus, with over 400,000 downloads to date. Her coaching company now employs 25 people and makes a seven-figure income per month. So we're glad and privileged to have Dylan with us. She lives in the San Diego, California area. Dylan Jahraus, once again, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Great intro.
Absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely. A lot of experience there, and looking forward to exploring it. But where I'd like to start is where I usually start with my guests, is a little bit of the history, how you got here. And you had a corporate career. And so could you tell us just briefly about that? What did your career entail, the different things you did leading up to starting your first business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually from Minnesota. I grew up on a farm, went to college on the East Coast, studied business, studied fashion, buying and product development in London for a little bit. And then I got my first career after college at Zappos, and that was in Las Vegas. And Tony Hsieh was the CEO at the time, and
Right.
yeah, he's since passed away, but he really taught delivering that wow experience, that customer experience, and that's where I got my e-commerce start. Was there for a little bit, and then went up to Seattle, worked for Zulily, completely different e-commerce business model. Learned a lot nonetheless, and then got married and with someone in the military. So we, you move a lot in the
Right.
military. We ended up in San Diego. There's not as much e-commerce here as there is in Seattle. So I basically started my own Etsy shop. I was doing all these side hustles. Etsy was just one of them. And I realized, wow, if I take everything I know from corporate e-commerce and apply it to Etsy, I could make a lot of money. So that's what I did.
Wow. And so did you have a particular product in mind, or something you had been working on the side? What was it that you launched with initially?
Yeah, so I was, just doing all these side hustles. I was dog walking, house sitting, doing anything just to, cover like cost of living expenses. And I threw up one item that I made for our wedding, and it was a letter, like our initial of our last name, and it was made out of flowers, like fake flowers. And I just threw it up there, and then I forgot about it.
Hmm.
And 2 months later, someone bought the thing. Now, the thing, we didn't know how to make this in a shippable format. It was a picture of something at our wedding, and it was made out of toothpicks and foam. Not exactly something you can ship. So then I told my husband, oh man, we're gonna have to figure out what to do here. Now we have to ship this to someone and make them one of their own. So he helped me construct one out of wood and got a jigsaw. We're like out on actually the side of the freeway here in California, because we got kicked out of our apartment complex didn't like us with our power tools. So we had to go with a generator along the freeway,
Are
and
you serious? That's hilarious.
yeah, and that's how the business started.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So did you, if you go back earlier to your career, did you have aspirations of being your own boss back then?
Absolutely. My parents are both entrepreneurs.
I
My
see.
mom, had her own dental practice, for about 40 years. My dad still has a construction fencing company she's over 45 years now. And I'd seen what it can do for you, that financially and time freedom, working for yourself. And so my plan was to become a consultant, kind of freelance consultant by the time I was 40 in
In
e-commerce.
marketing, e-commerce market. Okay, I see.
Exactly.
I see.
Yes.
And that was the plan. And you felt that you needed that experience first before you could go and build your own business doing that?
Yes. So I definitely am so glad that I had the experience first. After college, I was toying with the idea of an MBA versus getting into the workforce. And
Hmm.
I really believe getting into the workforce, it can be like a real life MBA. Getting that experience, there's really nothing comparable. Working for a company that is well known, has really, good processes and systems in place, it can do a lot for you professionally. I think more than just reading textbooks. So that experience was invaluable. And I don't think I would have started my own business if I hadn't had the corporate experience first.
Okay. And do you think, would you have, looking back at it now, I always like to ask people this question, would you have done it sooner? Was it just about right? Would you have done anything differently as far as how long you waited, or when you did finally make the transition? Would you have done it sooner?
Definitely not, because I was 25. I was only
Okay.
25 when I started this. And
Got
to
it.
me,
Very young still.
I was panicked. I thought, oh my goodness, has my career peaked? Did I
Interesting.
already peak? Yeah.
Got
Yeah.
it. Okay, that makes sense. But then that necessity and the situation of having moved to San Diego created kind of the catalyst to actually do something, and then it just you stumbled upon this thing that people wanted, and now you had to make it. And then I'm assuming that then made you think, okay, maybe there's something here. Let me put some other products up. Is that what happens next?
Yeah. And then, at that point, we also we found out we were having a baby. So that changes everything.
Sure.
When you have a newborn, you don't want to put them in, a 6-week-old baby in daycare. That wasn't my vision for my life and our family. So I thought, okay, I have to make this work now. And I got it up to about 10,000 per month with just two types of products. Then, we were kind of thinking, what's the ceiling on this? What else could we do? Built our product mix in a customer centric way. So we looked at how can we serve our customers in as many ways as possible. So we started in wedding, moved into baby, then kind of birthday, early childhood, and expanded that way.
Mhm. And I'm assuming I got to think you brought a lot of the philosophies you learned at Zappos about just all about customer service, right? As far as your return policy and refund policy, all of those things that Zappos did so well. I don't know how they do now, really, as part of Amazon, but certainly that's what they were known for, right?
Right. Yeah. That customer experience, I do call it the invisible playing field because that is something that people can't just copy, right? They can't just rip it off. How you make customers feel when they purchase and have that experience, is it transactional or is it something that made them feel good? Right.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that really is a value. And I find that the best customers, the customers that you actually want, the ones who have higher discretionary income, that who come and purchase more frequently, those customers will pay more for that experience.
Hmm. Yeah. Excellent. Great. All right. So, and you started that first shop on Etsy, or was it another platform?
Yeah, it was on Etsy for the first few years until we were doing about, let's see, around 360,000 a year. And then we expanded onto Shopify and then Amazon.
I see. I see. All right. Well, let's talk about Etsy. You're an expert there. Obviously, you have courses and help people with launching their shops there. Let's level set on what Etsy is. I think most people that are listening have some idea or have been on there as a customer. Obviously, Etsy is a global marketplace, as they say, for unique and creative goods. a couple of stats here as I was kind of doing some research. I've been on Etsy, although, my wife certainly shops there as well, so I'm familiar with it. But according to them, 100 million plus items available for sale, 9 million active sellers, 96 million plus active buyers, and people buying and selling in nearly every country in the world. So, that's what it is. But in your words and from your experience, kind of give me an overview of what this platform is and who is it for?
Absolutely. Yes. I think there's some major misconceptions out there about Etsy. They think it's a place for people to put up their crafts for sale, like it's a flea market or a craft fair, not at all. I think that's maybe how it started, so long ago, but it's really evolved into something completely different where it attracts a really profitable customer, people who are looking for something unique, one of a kind, personalized. And you own your policies when you are selling on Etsy. So unlike Amazon, where you're basically forced to accept returns when you sell on Amazon, with Etsy, you own your policies, you own your brand. And I really believe it is the fastest place to build a brand right now. If you are starting a brand or you're wanting to grow your e-commerce business, if you're not on Etsy, you're missing such an opportunity. So we use it really as a launching point to build a brand. The customers that they pay to bring in, extremely profitable. And the marketing they do for you, if you can't afford your own marketing team, it is so worth it. The fees are really nominal compared to something like Amazon.
Because if I understand, it's like 20 cents when you sell something. You can explain it to me at a high level because it really is, there isn't much of in the way of a carrying cost, if you will, like there is on Shopify, for example.
Yeah, so really, with Shopify, the percentages are lower, right? The percentages, the payment processing fees are lower than Etsy, but you have a traffic problem. You have a major traffic problem if you try to start your own website or Shopify, where you are going to be reliant on ads most likely, or, paid marketing. And Etsy, you don't have to do any ads. So while the transaction fee is a little bit higher, it's not as high as Amazon would be, and your traffic is just not gonna be something you have to pay for.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. And I really didn't understand that. I also glad you enlightened me because I did assume it was where you went for crafty type of stuff.
Yeah.
So just to follow up on that point, generally speaking, what types of products, services are ideal for the Etsy platform? Can you give me some examples? I mean, you gave me your example, but what are you seeing now as you work with your students, with your clients, as to what it's best for?
Yeah, so, I've had several thousand students at this point, selling everything you can imagine from, a 99-cent digital download to $15,000 tables. And so everything in between, we have
Mhm.
worked with. One of my students, she sells spreadsheets. She works full time. She has less than
Interesting.
100 listings. She makes 25,000 a month.
Selling spreadsheet templates. Is that right?
Templates,
Interesting.
exactly.
Yeah, never
Mhm.
never would have thought of that.
Yeah, yeah. We have people selling stickers who do about 20,000 a month. We have people selling, print on demand products making, 40 to 80,000 a month. And these are things you don't have to have things in your home that you're shipping out. You can fully outsource things to a production partner where you can have, as little hands on it as possible if you want. And you can really build a team. So some of our students, they're doing 1 to 8 million per year. Our top student has 50 employees.
Wow,
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing. You teach a lot and talk a lot about how to differentiate yourself, and I know some of that has to do with the listing of the product and all of that, the wordings that you use. But at a high level, let's start to talk about that. It can be though for other things other than those unique things you highlighted, as in any marketplace, there can be a lot of others doing something similar, right? So,
Yes.
how do you begin to help people make sure that they stand out on Etsy?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think one of the biggest mistakes people do when they want to sell on Etsy is they go to Etsy and they look at what else is selling.
Hmm.
And then they see, oh, this person is at the top of search results. I can do that too. And what they don't realize is what do you have to stand on? What's your reputation? What's your track record? How can you convince someone to shop with you versus another listing that's pretty much the same that has, 5,000 reviews that are 5 stars and they can do it for 20% cheaper because they have, quantities of scale here. So that's what people, I do not recommend you do. Don't go to
Mhm.
Etsy, see what's working and then copy it.
Because
Right.
your probability of being able to dislodge them without a reputation, without a track record, that's going to be a hard hill to climb. That's going to be hard to defeat them at what they've been doing well.
It is, and you're swimming uphill a little bit. So,
Mhm.
another thing I think people maybe not aren't realizing is Etsy is one of the last places to get trends. So, if you are following what's working on Etsy, you're about 6 to 8 months too late. The real way to become a market leader is to bring new trends to the Etsy platform, and that's what we help people do because it's not that difficult. It's some easy wins, kind of like a layup. You're going to be your competition is so low and people recognize, oh, this is something new and trendy I haven't seen yet on Etsy. So easiest way to become a market leader is bringing new trends in, and we don't find those trends on Etsy. We find them outside of Etsy.
I see. And then, so we find out what do I have this unique, or where have I seen elsewhere that's unique? Then the research on Etsy is there an opportunity? Is it underserved? And that's where I might start.
Yes, and Pinterest and TikTok are two great places to find those trends.
I see. I see. Okay, so let's say I have identified that. I know what the item is, or well, let me ask you that. Is there any kind of guidance generally? You had thrown up that one item, and it somebody bit, but what do you teach people now as to how big of a shop do I need to have? How many items do I need to have available typically?
Yeah, so you really don't have to have a ton of listings or items. With Etsy, it's really a search engine. So, for example, you could take one item, make 100 listings out of it because each
I see.
listing is targeting new customers and new search results. So, new long tail keywords. And we are really, very well known for our SEO strategies, which is why our students typically don't ever touch ads. And SEO is really a big part of success on Etsy. So, you can take one item, retarget it, and reposition it for, 20 different types of people, 20 different
Interesting.
situations. Mhm.
And each of those, using, I guess, my terminology, kind of a landing page, if you will, within Etsy that has SEO targeted to a particular ideal consumer. Am I getting that right?
Exactly. And we always start with the customer. I think a lot of people put this pressure on themselves to come up with a winning product. And that's not at all what you want to do because you're trying to come up with this product and then you're wondering like who's going to buy this. Instead, we want to start with what is the ideal type of customer you want to sell to? Whose whose spending habits do you want to rely on for your income? And then we build our product mix for them. So much easier that way too.
And so to that end, who I think I know what the demographic is on Etsy, but you tell me what is the predominant demographic on Etsy?
It is mostly women, of course, shopping, but they shop for men too. So, having a shop with men's products in it. For example, one of my top students, he's 24. He does wallets, men's wallets, and he has less than 100 listings. In his first full year, he did $438,000.
Wow.
One type
Y-
of product,
Yeah.
men's wallets,
Mhm.
retargeting, new customers, new SEO in there. And he's selling to mostly women, right? But it's a men's product.
Yeah. Yeah. I would not have thought about that, but that makes sense. Yeah. This is Henry Lopez, briefly pausing this episode to invite you to schedule a free coaching consultation with me. I welcome the opportunity to chat with you about your business plans and offer the guidance and accountability that we all need to achieve success. As an experienced small business owner myself, I understand the challenges you're experiencing, and often it's about helping you ask the right questions to help you make progress towards achieving your goals. Whether it's getting started with your first business or growing and maybe exiting your existing small business, I can help you get there. To find out more about my business coaching services and to schedule your free coaching consultation, please visit thehowofbusiness.com. Take that next step today towards finally realizing your business ownership dreams. I look forward to speaking with you soon. As you help people, what's trending elsewhere that isn't on Etsy? What isn't already, somebody doesn't already dominate, especially as I'm getting started and I don't have a reputation, understanding who that target buyer is, but that they might be buying for men as an example. Um, what else? What else do I need to do first to get ready to launch that first listing?
Yes. So you want to make sure you know enough about SEO and how to optimize your listings for mobile, because most people are shopping on mobile with Etsy on the app and on their phones. So you want to make sure you have that game plan in place because of Etsy's algorithm. And Etsy does give you a boost in your first really 30 to 45 days. They
Hmm.
will automatically rank you a little bit higher in search results. So you don't want to mess that up with bad listings.
Right, right. That
Yeah.
initial launch is critical, and that makes sense as to what their approach is. They're seeing, let's see if this, let's see if somebody wants this, and so they're going to serve it up more,
Mhm.
and but then you've got to get people's attention, and otherwise it's going to drop off.
Exactly. And people hear, "Oh, it takes 6 months to start getting sales on Etsy." No, it really a good goal would be 100 sales in your first month.
Okay, 100 sales in your first month. Good
Mhm.
metric. Since we're on that topic, do you find, at least with your students, that most people come to an Etsy shop as a side hustle? Is that typical? Or, I mean, I'm sure it depends, but is that the typical situation?
So I think a lot of people, especially in 2020, everyone's home
Yep.
doing all the side hustles online that they can. Um, that's how a lot of people started it. I think people underestimate the power of that platform though. And the people we work with, we really don't work with anyone who wants to make less than 5 to 10,000 a month in profit.
Okay.
Yeah.
In other words, this is for people, at least how you teach people how to do it is for people who want to make this a real business.
Yeah, because our coaching, it's one-on-one private coaching, and we're very committed. It's unlimited 24/7. I have a night crew on their coaching, for example. We don't take off holidays or weekends. So with the commitment level we have, we want to work with people who are just as committed to actually having a business, not just dabbling. Because if you're just dabbling or doing something for fun or to kill time, like you don't need guidance, just
No, no,
yeah,
just make it a hobby and throw it up there and see what happens.
yeah.
All right, we've talked about several things here that makes for success on Etsy. What else? What else have I not asked you about or you're not shared yet that you see that the people who do it right are doing?
Yeah, a lot of people think Etsy's saturated. Is there room to compete? How can I break in as a new seller? Did I miss the opportunity? And I will say, I've been on there for over 8 years now, and it's really the same, I would say the same number of good listings. It's probably the same as 8 years ago. The
Interesting.
percentage, yeah,
Mm,
the percentage of quality listings of people who are actually having a strategy versus just like they threw up 200 AI images and like walked away, that it's really hasn't changed that much. So
mhm.
in terms of competing and people who are doing Etsy well, it's not saturated with that.
And if I'm understanding correctly, the other thing that I might say, well, you've already got these established dominant sellers and they've cornered the market. And that's what I mean by saturated. But if I'm understanding correctly, the Etsy platform allows for new entrants by the way that the algorithm treats a new listing.
Completely. Yeah, and I would say a lot of the people who, were doing really well, it was you didn't really need strategy, 8 years ago. You didn't need the same level of strategy that you do now, at least. And I would say a lot of those players are kind of asleep at the wheel. Okay.
Interesting.
So people I work with, some people, they were at 500,000 a year, and then they just have been relying
Hmm.
today on what worked then. And it's taken them down to like, 50,000 a year.
I
And
see.
there's some huge decreases. And it's if you're not evolving on Etsy and if you're not doing the new strategies, your business will go into a slump.
Yeah. If you're just resting on your laurels or coasting, you're going to pay the price for that. Any
Totally.
other common mistakes that you see that we haven't touched on? Anything else that comes to mind, Dylan?
Yeah. I would say, you know, not being afraid to try new things if you are an existing shop. If something is your bestseller today and it was your bestseller, 5 years ago, I'm a little concerned that you have left
Hmm,
opportunity on the table
I see.
and that you haven't tested enough because on Etsy, it is faster moving. Trends, they do matter in e-commerce, especially with that Etsy customer. So if your bestseller today is the same as 5 years ago, we've really missed opportunity. And I would get into some pretty intensive testing.
And I gotta think that's in part because that buyer on Etsy, most of them are looking for the next thing, the next creative thing, the next gift idea, right? I'm not going back on there. Don't ask me why this popped into my head, but my wife just ordered earplugs on Amazon, right? So a consumable that you order again and again and again. And if it works out well from one vendor, then I'll just buy it again and again and again, right? There's no thought in it. But the majority of the stuff that I'm buying or that buyer is buying on Etsy, they're not always going back for the same thing, right? In fact, they're usually probably going back they might want something similar, maybe in the same theme, but a different item. Is that fair?
Yeah, exactly. So you want to think about how can I serve my customers in as many areas of their life as possible?
Mm,
So,
okay.
what do they spend their time and money on? What are their expensive hobbies and activities? Do they have kids? Do they have aging parents? All of these things are really important because you want to be able to really, serve them in as many areas. So it's one person, strong LTV, right? The lifetime value of the customer matters. This is not like transactions on Amazon.
Right. Yep. No, that makes a big difference. Okay. The
Yeah.
question I often get and I think about as well, I've got my my Etsy shop in this case, could be Shopify, could be Amazon. Same question applies. Should I also have my own website, even if it's just for informational purposes and directing people to the Etsy shop?
1,000,000% yes. And a couple of reasons for this. If you're wanting to build something that is a sellable asset, you cannot sell an Etsy shop, but you can build a brand that you can then sell. And it's very beneficial to have a website if you want to do that.
That makes
So that's
sense.
one consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't want to do this too early though, because if you haven't gotten
Mm,
momentum on Etsy and you're diluting your efforts, Etsy is going to be where you get the fast feedback to grow
right.
your brand,
Yeah. That
not your
makes sense.
website. I would just wait until you're about 80 to 100,000 a year in revenue on Etsy before you do that.
Okay. That's a good tip. Yeah. So you said you own the policies. Do I own the client information on Etsy?
Good question. No, you cannot take their emails and do your own email marketing. They do have to still opt in to receiving your emails.
Right. So, and that's what I would do on my own website. In other words, I can't do that on the Etsy shop.
You can actually put up a link to collect emails. A lot of people will do this where they'll give a discount if you input your email. So that's totally fine to collect them on Etsy, but not without their consent.
Got it. Got it. And that is, I got to think that's critical, right? That goes back to owning your traffic. And so I got to think that successful Etsy shop owners do that. Is that, and you teach that?
Yes, absolutely. And we actually find there's less friction in getting the customers over to your social media like Instagram
I see.
versus giving their email because a
Okay.
follow on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
that's, for them, that's less expensive or less friction than like choosing to give their email out.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And that's why then leading into that question, you would then, of course, have Instagram or whatever it is that you have a following on as a way to generate a following. And would you wait on that similarly to the website, or would you do that from day one or even before day one as far as the social media presence?
Yeah, social media, it can be so low effort that I would do it on day one. It's not going to dilute your efforts for building your shop.
Hmm.
In the same way, you could do 20 minutes a day and have a huge impact.
So yeah, that makes sense to me. In fact, I've often recommended to people if you have a following, they're great because now I can direct that following to my new Etsy shop, right?
Exactly. Direct them, from Instagram to your shop or to your website. And we use
Hmm.
Instagram as a bridge to get people to your website.
I see. I see. But unlike other platforms, if I've understood correctly, because the challenge I always say to people, I can put up my Shopify website or, of course, my own website, and I'm a needle in the haystack, right? It takes time, or I'm going to have to spend money on getting found. But if I'm following correctly, one of the benefits and what I'm paying for on Etsy is that they generate that traffic to my listing, correct?
Absolutely. And, when I talk to people about starting a shop, and they're like, I'm not sure if I should do Etsy or Shopify. I straight up ask, do you have $10,000 a month to spend on ads? And to spend on ads running to product that you don't have proof of concept with.
Hmm.
That's the key. You don't have proof of concept yet if you're going to be a new brand, a new business. So that's very expensive to experiment that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. Okay. Anything else I didn't add? Is there something that I didn't ask about that you usually see as a challenge, either for someone who's looking to get started with an Etsy shop? Anything that we didn't cover that you think is worth mentioning?
Yeah, if you're an overthinker, perfectionist, you are, kind of potentially going to have some problems on Etsy because, success loves speed and getting a
Mhm.
listing up is so key. So I really challenge you to not overthink it. Don't research things to death. Just get something up because Etsy is a place where you can get fast feedback. So don't let yourself, sabotage your potential success.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice. I can think of someone right now actually who's thinking about launching a product on Etsy, and they seem to be doing an inordinate amount of research, which is good. I'm that person. I'm the overanalyzer. But I
Mhm.
love what you're saying, and it applies in so many business arenas, if not all of them. The most valuable, you got to do some research and some initial, like you said, about identifying trends, for example, and something that somebody already doesn't dominate right now on Etsy. But then the most valuable feedback I'm going to get is to put the listing out there and see what happens, see what the consumer says.
Exactly. Yeah, they will give you what you need much more than you on your computer researching things, to death. Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed. All right, tell us about the programs that you currently offer to people who are starting or growing their Etsy shop.
Yeah, I started this about 2 years ago. I didn't even know what this course would be about. I thought it might be about deciding what to sell online, just kind of like, one of those, $200 courses or something. But then as I started making YouTube videos, I actually had people requesting an Etsy course. I grew a rapid YouTube following from talking about this, and actually had people signing up for this course before I even made it. They were like ready to go. So that I started by myself a couple years ago. We've since built a team of about, gosh, almost 30 people. We just hired 4 people in the last week and a half. So we're probably about 30 right now.
Wow.
And yeah, it's grown very rapidly. We're doing 7 figures a month with that. But the course itself, it's not just a course because anyone can watch videos. What people really need is how can this apply to me?
Hmm.
And that's where we come in. We offer unlimited one-on-one private coaching, and it's truly 7 days a week. You could ask a million questions a day. And then we have 4 coaching calls every week. So in the year, it's a year program, you get 208 coaching calls. So it's so much support. We also get that community. We do meetups. We had our first one in May. We're doing one this fall. So it's really a community of high achieving business owners. Okay, so that's what we offer. It's not for everyone. Some people just want a hobby. This is not for that. It's for people who really want to make a lot of money.
Yeah, and are ready to make that investment. I noticed on the website you have a group of coaches, because obviously for that much coaching sessions, it's not just you. You wouldn't be able to deliver that. So who are these people, generally speaking, these coaches that you have that provide a one-on-one?
Yeah, our coaching team is global. So we have students in 35 countries. So we have coaches in Australia, Bali, let's see, the UK, and they're all over the place. But we are on, 24/7, and they're all experts, not just on Etsy, but a lot of them are also doing wholesale. They're on Amazon, Shopify, Faire, Walmart, other platforms as well. And
Hmm.
they are, we pay them a lot of money. I won't say how much, but it's the biggest expense for our business because the fulfillment, the results, that's what matters.
Right.
And the only reason we have so many students wanting this and people coming and wanting this is because of the results. So our coaches are so loved and they're really phenomenal experts.
Yeah. As I was doing the research, Dylan, I was watching some of your videos. I was looking to get the background, but also I wanted to learn how to pronounce your last name. So, and it's funny, I got frustrated, but in a good way. When you watch your videos, you get right into the subject matter. There isn't a big, introduction and all of that. But interestingly, you never say your name. So
Oh,
that
that's
was,
funny.
it is interesting, but I love, because that's always been what I've tried to do with the How a Business, is to provide actionable information, right? And in your videos, you get right to that subject. And I think that's very powerful. I think that's one of the reasons you have such a great following on your YouTube channel. Um, but it took me a while to listen to your name being pronounced. I will say that. Um,
Yeah.
all right. I'm always looking for a book recommendation. Is there a book that you've read or a reading that you would recommend?
Yes. So definitely I would say one that I read at Zappos. We did a book study on this actually, and it's called The Dip, just The Dip. And it's really about, the story of how, big businesses, before they see a big increase, oftentimes they're just kind of like puttering along. Sometimes they go into a dip, and it's the point when most people would give up. Most
Mm,
people would move into another business, or they would do a, big pivot. But because they stay consistent and they push through the dip, they see an increase that's, they actually show the graphs in these books, in this book. And it just is a reminder to anyone starting in entrepreneurship or in the thick of it right now, that this is when most people are going to quit. And just by continuing to put in the reps, like that is going to make you win.
yeah. Yeah. Love that. Thanks for that book recommendation. Of course, since we've mentioned Zappos and Tony Hsieh, his book, the late Tony Hsieh, great book as well, that I would recommend to people, since we were talking about him.
Yes.
Um, all right. Excellent. What's one thing that you want us to take away, Dylan, on this conversation that we've had about Etsy and creating a successful Etsy business? What's one thing you want us to take away?
I would say that winning on Etsy, it is a choice. It is a choice. And you have a lot more control out of, in your success in e-commerce than you think. It's not coming up with some magical idea. It's really simple business principles that you need to apply to Etsy. And these are just business principles. So it's not some magic trick or hack that's going to make you successful. It's really learning business. And it's a choice to keep going and to push through when other people would quit. And I really believe, if you have internet access, you can do anything you want. It is a choice. So I encourage you, if you are on the fence or frustrated with your business, with where you're at, start really learning business principles. When my mentor, his name is Alex Hermosi, I really learned a lot from him about some different business models in the last year or two. And if you just take the time to educate yourself, like you can get unstuck and get to a level that you would never get to by yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Where do you want us to go online to learn more?
Yeah, definitely follow us on Instagram at Dylan Jahraus. Myself and my team are in there all day, every day, chatting it up with you guys. And then if you'd like to learn more about the courses, we can definitely schedule a call with us. It's a free call, and it's good to just chat about what you want to do to see if it's even in alignment with what we do. So we can link the call booking right there too.
Wonderful. Dylan, thanks for sharing all this information and taking the time to be on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Henry. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. This is Henry Lopez, and thanks for joining me on this episode of The How of Business. My guest today again is Dylan Jahraus. I release new episodes every Monday morning, and you can find the show anywhere you listen to podcasts, including the How of Business YouTube channel and my website, thehowofbusiness.com. Thanks again for listening.
Thank you for listening to The How of Business. For more information about our coaching programs, online courses, show notes pages, links, and other resources, please visit thehowofbusiness.com.